What's up guys, I'm back with another game spotlight, and today we're taking a look at Salt and Sanctuary. I've been playing this one on stream for about a week now. I'm on the very last boss. I'm gonna wrap it up next session, and I thought I'd go ahead and give my thoughts on the game. For anyone who hasn't heard of it yet, Salt and Sanctuary is, we'll say, a 2D action-adventure game, but if we're being honest, it's basically just 2D Dark Souls. I've played a lot of games inspired by the Soulsborne series, and this one is far and away the Soulsiest of them. And what I mean by that is you've got your vague storyline. This one starts out and you're on a boat, there's a shipwreck, you come to a mysterious island and learn small bits and pieces of what's going on via gameplay. Next up is your standard Souls combat. You've got your weapon, either one or two-handed, with or without shield, light and heavy attacks, couple different combos, your stamina bar, invincibility frame rolling, and the ability to parry and riposte. And to really seal the deal, you've got your Bonfire, Estus, and Soul systems. You get a rechargeable and upgradable potion that refills every time you rest at a sanctuary. Sanctuaries are found throughout the game, and they're also where you revive if you're killed. When you discover a new one, you put your religion symbol on it, which you might have guessed lights it on fire. Well, it lights the candles, but still. Sanctuaries are also where you level up, and to level up you have to spend salt. Salt is automatically acquired from killing enemies and lost upon death. If you're killed by an enemy, they retain your salt, and you've got to kill them to get it back, a la Bloodborne. And if you fall to your death or die from poison or something, it manifests as a bat, which you also have to kill to get it back. If it sounds like I just went and renamed all of the mechanics in Dark Souls, that's because it's what Salt and Sanctuary did. I mean, come on, you even acquire new weapons by trading in and transmuting boss ashes. That's pretty blatant. Now that we've established what makes the game Dark Souls, let's talk about what makes the game not Dark Souls, the original content. Well, the big thing is that it's a 2D side-scroller. And you know what's popular in 2D? Platforming games. That's right, Salt and Sanctuary is chock full of platforming. Early on, it's not that noticeable, but as the game progresses, it gets more and more platform-centric. By the last few levels, you're much more likely to die from the environment than you are from the enemies. Hell, the last level of the game doesn't even have any enemies in it. The entire run from the penultimate boss to the end of the game is just platforming. Well, and the last boss. So with this heavy emphasis on platforming in the endgame, you'd expect the platforming to be a lot better than it is. It's pretty dreadful. I'd periodically jump towards ledges and the game just wouldn't latch onto them. This happened frequently enough to where I thought something was wrong with the controller and swapped it out. And nope, the game's either just buggy or has issues with the terrain hitboxes. Either way, sometimes when you jump up to a ledge, it doesn't grab it. It should. It doesn't. And the platforming elements don't really have puzzles either. It's just the occasional disappearing platform or a section of ground that breaks after a second from standing on it. If the game feels like throwing a challenge at you, it hits you with a few enemies while you're on unsteady ground, and let me tell you what a joy that is. One of the levels is a cave called something along the lines of Sammy Hagar's Fun Dungeon, where all of the enemies seem to be designed to do nothing but knock you back 10 feet if they happen to hit you. Half of the enemies in this area might as well be a one-shot kill because you're just launched off of a cliff every time you get hit. It makes me think back to Mega Man, a series that managed to use enemies in combat to enhance platforming. It was all about timing and knowing your abilities. This game just has you jump up a few cliffs, and then when you do reach flat ground, there's a guy on top that can knock you down and kill you. And if you're thinking it might be, oh, you know, the Devil May Cry, fast-paced, stylish action on ground in air, no, it's not. It's not that at all. It's slow, decisive Souls combat that occasionally just throws you into a hole. It's not difficult, it's just tedious. I mean, the game's not all bad. Sure, there's some level of difficulty curve that's pretty good. The bosses are a good example of this. Each boss has a moveset with patterns and timings, and at low HP, they tend to switch it up and make things interesting. So, you know, you learn the patterns and learn the fight, and then they swap it up on you, and you have to adapt, and it's fun. A lot of the bosses are fun. It's a solid bit of gameplay. Of course, there are also a few of them that are so unreasonably bad, they just ruin the experience and make all of the bosses seem terrible. Two bosses in particular were just inexcusable. The first of these was a boss that's actually a pretty interesting concept. The boss itself is a big inanimate axe, and you have to attack that, and then there are 2 untargetable ghosts that can pick it up. So typically one of the ghosts picks up the axe and swings it at you while the other one shoots missiles at you. Except they freely float around in between doing their actions. So most of the time while you're fighting the ghost with the axe, the other one is shooting you from somewhere off screen. And there's no indicator, and it's not a slow projectile. It's all of a sudden these high-speed missiles come at you from somewhere, and you can't see where they're coming from. And they're fast enough to be nearly impossible to dodge if you're not already in motion when they're that close to you. When both the ghosts did manage to be on the screen at the same time, it was a good fight. It was fun and intense. But if I just can't see where one of the guys is attacking me from, and I can't see him attacking me, that doesn't make the fight interesting. It makes it nonsense. I'd imagine I would have had a much harder time on this boss because of that, except for 4 out of my 5 attempts, one of the ghosts bugged out and just stopped moving for the rest of the fight. This isn't some mechanic where it stops and recharges, it just got stuck in one spot and unable to move or fire. And I was playing this on stream, and I asked my viewers if anyone else had seen something like this, because again, it happened 4 out of 5 times. And to my surprise, it happened to all of them. Every single person I've talked to who's done this boss has had one of the ghosts bug out. Every single person. I even looked online and it was the same thing. People were saying it has something to do with the ghosts being near the edge of the arena, except they float freely, so one of them is going to end up at the edge of the arena every single fight. How did that make it to live? How has the game been out this long with no fix for that? And that's just one of the 2 bosses that was completely ridiculous. The other one that was a game-ruining nightmare was another floating boss. It all seems to have to do with the floating mechanics. This one is a single enemy, a pure caster. This one had a cool moveset with logical answers to her abilities, cast certain things, certain ways to dodge them, very consistent. Except that they didn't put a limit on how far away she can move. And when you're in a boss area, you get a little wiggle room left and right, but the screen is locked to a pretty small area. And one of her attacks is an instant kill at close to medium range. You either need to be all the way on the other side of the arena, or you have to be directly underneath her, or you can also dodge past her and avoid it. Except that, every once in a while, she would float halfway off the screen and use it. The boss would actually float out of the boss area and use an attack that instantly kills you, with the safe zone to it being out of the arena, inaccessible. Like, what? How? Why? Why is that there? Why wasn't, like, there was other limits on how far the other floating bosses could move left or right. None of them could get out of the arena. This one just so happens to have an instant kill, and also just so happens to be the only boss that can float outside of the arena? What? That doesn't make sense. Did nobody play this boss? Did nobody test these bosses before they ended up in the game? And while those 2 bosses are the only huge monstrosities, there's also a lot that are just not worth mentioning. There are well-designed bosses, yes, but for every well-designed boss, there was also a big guy that you just rolled through and you kept swinging at him until he fell down. This game. Yeah, the platforming is boring and the combat is inconsistent on a good day. And if enough of the game's content hadn't been lifted directly from Dark Souls, you'll recognize the leveling system being the Final Fantasy X sphere grid. It's one thing to take inspiration from other games. It happens all the time, but you make unique and original content based off these ideas. You take some inspiration and you do something with it. It's another thing to just copy and paste someone else's work into your game. The best parts of Salt and Sanctuary are just plagiarized. That's it. And you know what? The worst possible offense this game could have done, the worst thing about it, is that it's just not fun. It's tedious and it's inconsistent. If you're thinking about buying Salt and Sanctuary, do yourself a favor, just replay any one of the other Souls games instead. Even if you love the idea of this like part Dark Souls, part Castlevania 2D game, just just don't do it. It's not worth it. It's not good. Anyway, that's it for me. I know the channel's been slow for a while. Some stuff's been going on. I had to upgrade some of my equipment. But I've got more content coming out soon, and I hope you guys are enjoying the podcasts. I'm going to keep those going once a week. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, you can find a link to my Twitch down in the description below. I wouldn't tune in immediately after this one because I'm going to play Salt and Sanctuary and that shit. But other than that, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, play some cool games. Hope everyone has a good one, and of course, I will see you guys next time.